And good evening, and welcome to the Soul Citizens. This is Griffin Gaming RPG, and it's good to see you guys again today. And I am here today with my good friend Younique, another one of our Soul Citizens. My brother, how are you? Please answer for 30 seconds because I didn't plug my headphones in and I got to put them in.
I was wondering what was happening there. Welcome everybody. Glad to be here. My good friend Griffin Gaming has called me up to be here way late at night to hang out with you guys, but I'm happy to do it. So come on in, ask some questions, come join us in the channels. God knows what's going to happen today. It'll be pretty crazy.
Dude, you get a triple A because this is your first time on and you did the most important thing, which is inviting people to come on this show so that me and you don't have to talk for 90 minutes. So thank you for doing that. You stepped right into the spot.
You are welcome.
No, Younique's my guy. And as you guys have known, you guys have seen him on our regular show on Sunday nights. One of the things I love about this guy is he is one of the legacy backers of Star Citizen. He's been around since the very beginning, and him being a brother, that makes it even better because he keeps us informed on how things were back in the day. But today we're going to talk about what's going on this week in Star Citizen. Let's see, we got a couple things to kind of cover. I guess the big thing is next week, as you guys know, is IAE 2950. And before we get to talking about that, let's take a quick look at what that looks like, because there's a lot. Well, you know what? Let me before we even get into that, because before we even looking at the teaser and stuff, let me ask you, Younique. You've been around long enough to remember when they started doing these quote unquote international aerospace expos, right? These events which is basically an anniversary sale renamed, but they built this whole thing around this guy Jax McCleary and all the manufacturers. Do you think that some people look at this thing with Star Citizen, these ships, they're still, even after all this time, stop selling ships. They keep selling ships. Do you think that this is a good thing in the sense of the publicity for the thing and to keep the backers going? Or do you think, this is just still kind of like money grubbing and taking advantage of new people who are coming in? Or do you think it's a little of both? What's your thought?
Well, after watching the system for a whole time, I don't think it's money grubbing. I think that it's the style in which that they are holding to their promise right now, which is not having a subscription-based back end, right? That we have to come into it now. Ultimately, in the long run, it might become that. But this is one way to continue to get money into the game to get it developed. So as they grow in the size and keep expanding the game, so the money's that's needed, I don't want to say it's limitless, but it's a lot. Why is it a lot? Because we keep asking for a lot. So, the original scope was like maybe 20 solar systems, and we're at 100, possibly another 100 later down the line or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as customers keep coming, it'll probably keep expanding. So they're going to need development money until it's technically, halfway through beta.
I never really looked at it from that perspective, and you said something that resonated with me there when you said that part of Star Citizen's piece was that we wouldn't have to be paying subscriptions for this game. And I think that maybe people have kind of forgotten about that because other games like EVE Online, World of Warcraft, ESO, we're paying monthly subscriptions to keep those games going. But there has to be some type of funding that kind of keeps not only the development going, but also getting prepared for when this actually launches. And I guess a lot of folks aren't thinking about that. They're just thinking about the fact that, they're just bringing in money. It's another $1 million, but that money goes right back out. It's not just like sitting in a bank somewhere, right?
Right. I mean, I got plenty of money in a bank, but, they have to have enough money to keep the regiment going. They probably need at least 1 or 2 quarters worth of money in the bank before they, get down to that, before they get nervous. So they have to have these periodic fundraisings to know that they can go the next 6 months and then the next 6 months. So that might be an interesting discussion about what do people think that some of their revenue source opportunities are if they don't do subscriptions.
That's a good point. Never thought about that. Okay, good point. Well, listen, why don't we real quick jump in. Ops Chief, good to see you tonight. J2, good to see you from Vector 27. Let's jump in and just kind of refresh our heads a little bit about this whole I don't know, what do we call it? This what do they call it? The IAE, right? The IAE.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see if I think I have the video chalked up here. I don't even see it. Where's my? This is so crazy. I'm so out of sorts today. I think it's been a long day.
Yeah, I'm kind of miffed, man. You didn't offer me a drink off your bar in the back there. You got the good stuff and you're keeping it for yourself.
Jax McCleary are here to take you through it all. We're here on Microtech, going behind the scenes, under the hood, and deep undercover, to bring you the galaxy's hottest ships from its coolest locale. See if you can keep up.
All right, that was our guy Jax McCleary. Let me get Younique up here with me instead of way back in the background there. Let's see.
A bald head.
No, we got to bring you up. We want people to see your beautiful face during the show. I don't want them. You're hiding out in the background. That's not good. Where are you? There you are. Beautiful. All right, now I've got to get the black thing in front of you, but that's close. It's close enough. Okay, so IAE this year, they showed a couple ships that they think, we kind of know that are going to be there. One of them was the F8. Always big controversy, right? Will the F8 be a ship that they will sell? What do you think? Yes or no?
Well, so I hope they don't. I don't mind it being given away for if you complete your service in the military, and
Okay.
that's an exit kind of thing. But just flat out selling it is like what is special in the game, right? To reward people to get them to do Squadron 42. So there are people, and some were upset they didn't. They only wanted Squadron 42. That's what they originally joined for.
Right.
Then of course Star Citizen showed up, and some people signed up just for Star Citizen. They don't care. So there's two sides of groups, or there's two groups. They're staring at each other like, I don't care about PTU, and the others, I don't care about Squadron 42. So I did get those two groups to commingle and play. So I think an incentive is something like the F8 or any other ship that takes the PTU fanatics and says, hey, if you go play Squadron 42, then you can get this if you finish it, and then it's a free ship. Why not?
Okay.
It seems like a pretty good ship.
Okay. And there's always been already, just yesterday, the Mercury Star Runner went out to PTU, but for Evocati only. A lot of people have had an opportunity to actually get on that ship if they had a friend who was Evocati. One of our soul members was able to let me get on today and try out his ship, which was very, very cool. Yes, J2, we are taking green room people, so please, if you want to jump in, if I missed you when you popped in, please forgive me. I was trying to get some tech stuff together over here, so yeah, please come in if you've got some stuff you want to share. But yeah, I think you were kind of watching me when I was wandering around on that Mercury, and we both were kind of impressed, first of all, with the size of the ship. It was a little bit larger than we thought it was going to be. One of the things I think that continues to happen with CIG when they do their ships is that they're getting better and better with each ship that comes out. And I guess that's kind of like a blessing and a curse for some people, because in a way, the longer it takes for your ship to come out, hopefully that's the more that they've learned in ship design that'll make them even better. But at the same time, it also means you got to wait longer for whatever that ship is that you're looking for. You had some thoughts about the Mercury Star Runner earlier. What was some of the things you were saying about the practicality of it right now?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
That's
I didn't know
okay.
you were talking to the audience.
That's okay.
No, I like the ship. I own one, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it's pretty gorgeous from almost every angle that you saw. I mean, they have changed it with taking out that big center engine, but they've made cargo available, so it's a much bigger cargo space.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty versatile. I think people are comparing it against other ships like the Cuddy a little bit too much. It's a bigger ship than the Cuddy, I think, but it's completely designed for something else, and so that you really can't compare it from the aspect of can it take the hits in the firefight or not like that. I mean, it's a data runner, it's a smuggler ship. If it's in a firefight, it's not doing its job.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think we heard some people making a comparison between, like you said, the Cutlass, and we were kind of like, apples and oranges. It was not the ship to compare it against because it is a data runner, like you said. It's definitely not necessarily designed for combat. It's designed to get in, do what it needs to do, and get out, and carry a little bit of cargo and a little bit of smuggling. But of course, there will be those who feel very differently. So J2, I just put that link in for you if you wanted to do it. Okay, I see you said you'll get a drink. That's great. Because we'll be on ISC and probably by the time you come back. Okay, let me throw this at you, Younique, and then we'll get ready to talk about ISC. There are some prospective ships on the horizon for what may come into the game. One of them is the Nomad. We do know that the Nomad has been named, that it's being built by Consolidated Outland. We're assuming that it is the refinery ship that was mentioned last year at CitizenCon 20, whatever the number was. 2949. Last year they mentioned that there were 4 ships they were working on, and so the refining ship we know is one. There's also some rumblings about whether or not the Xi'an cargo ship would come out, because that would be the 4th of the 4 ships that they showed last year, but we've had no word on that. We've also heard there's a rumor about a ship called the Pegasus, which possibly is going to be built by RSI and possibly a gunboat. Estimates are that the ship is going to be between size of a Hammerhead and a Polaris. I think for the Mercury Star Runner, that's running around 2.25, 250, something like that. I forget. For the Pegasus, for the Perseus. I could have said Pegasus. Yeah. Lord, you know why I said Pegasus? Because Paul Shelley said that it'd be amazing if that ship came out now. Not the Pegasus, guys. Please forgive me. Thank you, Nihilus. Perseus. Thank you, Nihilus. Thank you for catching that. The Perseus is supposed to be around $600. We haven't got these completely confirmed, but these are the numbers that we're hearing right now. Of those ships, is there anything you're interested in? That refinery ship, the Xi'an cargo ship, or a gunship of that size? Or are you pretty much taking a pass and waiting to see how things go?
I would be interested in a medium-sized refinery ship. If it's a small ship, that's not going to do me any good. Okay. I've got the big refinery already, so the Orion is, well, if it ever materializes, I've got one. So it's supposed to be able to do some refining. So a medium-sized refinery to fit in between that. I'm not sure a small refinery ship would actually be any good.
Yeah.
What would you do with it? Like you had a mole, and it doesn't carry a lot. So
yeah, I'm concerned about that too because of the price point for it. It's supposed to be less than $100, and I'm a little concerned that, first of all, that's cheaper than even the Prospector is, right? My concern, even though they say it's a starter, now I may get that. I kind of find it hard that somebody's going to look at refining as a career solely. I think if you're into mining, you're probably going to be into refining too. But I'm like you. I'm a little concerned about what the output for a ship like that would be. Let me get J2. J2 just dropped into our green room, and let's bring him in. J2, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, man, how's it going?
Good to talk to you. I haven't talked to you in forever, man.
All right, brothers. How's everybody doing?
Good. I said I haven't talked to you in forever. It's good to hear your voice.
Yeah, I haven't been around. I've had, a series of like cascade PC failures. Like every one of my peripherals has died. It's been a mess. I haven't actually been able to log into the game since like 3:10. So, it's been a mess. But
okay.
I'm here. I'm hanging in there. We're doing well.
Okay, well, good. What are your thoughts?
Man, I have been, not being able to play. I've been having to, live through everyone else vicariously, and I've been seeing a lot of very disturbing things going on in the community.
Okay.
One, going back to the point of ship sales, everybody's crying about the ship sales. If we look at the ship sales that they've been doing up until 2020 throughout 2018, throughout 2019, even 2017, if I remember correctly, they announced a new concept ship every 6 weeks.
Right.
Okay. Throughout 2020, there's been like 4 or 5 new concept ships. So they have ramped that down considerably since past years.
Absolutely.
As far as the funding of the game goes, that's how they're funding the game now. So for the time being, they need to keep selling ships because that's how that's what they're using to build it. Once they have something that they can release, Chris Roberts has stated that he wants the funding model to be based on game sales. Whether or not that's actually viable remains to be seen, and I'm sure that they will continue to do ship sales, at least for new concepts, and they'll probably add in other microtransaction cosmetic items, things like that. But ship sales, they're not going to be around forever, at least not the way we see them now.
That's a good point. I'm going to tell you something. I've got a confession, and we just had Heavy Bob come in. I don't know if he stepped away for a moment, but you can unmute whenever you're ready, Heavy Bob. I think you're able to do it. I'll tell you something I was a sucker for. When the PlayStation 3 was out, they had a thing called PlayStation Home. I don't know if anybody ever saw that, but it was kind of like their version of Second Life that was built into the PlayStation. And there were hundreds of thousands of people played that thing. It was free to go into, but the cosmetic items, I can't tell you how much my credit card, my daughter, rang that sucker up. Cosmetic items, I'm a sucker for those things. And so I'm not saying that that's enough to generate revenue to run the game. But what I am saying is that even if it's not ship sales, between the sales of Squadron 42, and there are probably a lot of other people like me who cosmetic items, they will spend money. There's also, if you guys remember, the land was something that we had to purchase. That was not something that was outside of that, where people paid $50, if I'm remembering correctly, for a 4-kilometer area of land, or $100 or $90, I think it was, for 8-kilometer piece of land, whatever it was. I know people, I'm mad that I didn't buy my $50 piece of land. And I believe you me, when it goes on sale again, I'm going to buy a couple of those suckers. So, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of other players who will buy that type of thing. So I think that there can have these different virtual things that people will feel they're justified to spend money on and won't bark about it, versus if we were into a subscription model, which I would hate to see happen in the game. Younique, you got any thoughts on that? In relation to, you already talked about the money thing. Let me introduce Heavy Bob. Heavy Bob, you here?
I am.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
I am good.
Good. I saw your message. You said you posted something on Spectrum. You were wondering if we had talked about it.
No. I didn't post it on Spectrum, but it was a really good post on Spectrum. 340 upvotes.
Okay.
About sitting out the sale.
Sitting this sale out. Yep. Yeah, that's a good one. Very, very well written post. Not sure that I agree with everything in it, but it was, poignant and well written.
So, Heavy Bob, what was it basically saying?
What have we got this year? And what did we get better this year than last year? Or the year before? Or the year before that? We're still waiting for our game loops. We're still waiting for the ability to be able to do things. We're still talking about Death of a Spaceman. We're still talking about all these foundational technologies. But when do we actually start playing the game that we're being pitched for the last 8 years? That's what I'm really wondering.
Okay.
That's kind of what the post is about.
I think it's
all those specific things, but...
Well, I think it's a valid question, but let me say this to the poster who posted it. I won't, I'm not saying this in a bad way, but the question is, what are they looking for? Because to be honest with you, this whole thing is not about Star Citizen. It's about Squadron 42. That's the weight. And I think what happens is, because what we have in our hand is the MMO model, the persistent universe, that's where everybody wants to put the cart before the horse. I hate to break people's hearts. There were no promises about when the persistent universe would be released. There were promises about Squadron 42. So when people ask the question about where is Squadron 42, there are plenty of people who could validate that. It was said it was going to come out in 2014, 2015. We hoped in 2016. That argument, but here's my point. When you say where is it, I'm saying I think that the person who's writing about the ship sale is not writing about Squadron 42. They're probably writing about, as you just mentioned, things such as game mechanics, gameplay.
Did you even read the post?
Well, I'm asking you. You tell me. I asked you to fill me in.
It's a 3-point post. And one of the points in there is Squadron 42.
And what's the concern?
I think you should read the post before making any comments on it, honestly.
Heavy Bob, I asked you to fill me in because I hadn't read it, and all you shared with me was about game mechanics.
It's okay.
Okay, so let's talk about Squadron 42.
I'll let you read it first before making any jumping to any conclusion.
Here's the deal, Heavy Bob. The argument about the delay on the game, no matter what perspective, has existed for 5 years. Since 2015, that argument has existed. And people will say, now, and here's the other side of this that I say, if this was not an open development game, would we be having these conversations?
But you're discounting 340 upvotes.
Did you hear did you answer my question? If this answer my question. If this was not an open development game, would we be having this conversation?
Is it open development?
I'm talking about in the sense of transparency, and you know what's going on. If this was the typical game, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right?
It is an open development.
Okay, what do you call it?
Pay to access.
Okay, let's call it pay to access. If it wasn't pay to access, would we be having this conversation?
Look, you're just moving the line. There's
whoa. You're not answering my question. I'm asking a very straightforward question.
You do have genuine issues.
I didn't say they weren't genuine. I'm not dismissing them.
They're not genuine at all now.
What do you mean they're not genuine?
Okay, hey, take a breath, guys.
Yeah, what do you mean they're not genuine? What do you mean they're not genuine?
No, that's what you said.
No, I said I am taking them as genuine. I didn't say that they weren't. I'm saying that the argument has always been there on the delay of the game. That has existed for 5 years. And my point is that if you take any other game of this scope and scale, and you can name plenty of them that exist, that have taken anywhere from 7 to 10 years to come out, and that's when you don't know what's going on behind the door. Let's take Project CD Red's game right now. That game has been out there. They've just made delays on it, and it has taken them almost the same amount of time for that game to come out. And no one says anything about it. But when it's a game with the type of access that you mentioned, then all of a sudden there are issues. And I'm saying if it was not structured the way it is, we would be playing other games. We might be playing No Man's Sky right now. We might be playing EVE Online right now. But because
it's a real cop-out, what you're saying.
Why is it a cop-out?
Because, CIG doesn't do anything like anyone else.
I didn't say...
Like they charge you hundreds of dollars for a certain spaceship, and then they wait like several years before they even release it. Mm-hmm. It gets really frustrating. Chris Roberts said back in September that they've been working on a roadmap at the start of, or they talked about making a new roadmap back in January, and we're still waiting for that new refactor of the roadmap.
Very true.
Where is it?
Very true.
Does it really take that long for a roadmap?
Yes. I think it does. For the roadmap that they've described, did you hear the detail of that roadmap?
Yeah,
so that we're actually seeing
the same thing with. You could just go use Trello at that point.
I don't think it's that minimal, and I don't want to harp on this subject too long because we've got a lot to show to cover. I appreciate you. No. I appreciate you mentioning it, and I will go take a look at the Spectrum post on it. But I think
you really should read it.
Heavy Bob. I will. Honestly, you know me. I will go take a look at it. I will. For the 4th time, I will. Go ahead, J2. Were you going to say something?
I think there's valid points on both sides of the argument here. The simple fact that is, we've been waiting a long time, and we call this game, it's said to be open development, but open development's never really been done before. So how do we define open development? And the truth in the matter is, when you look at other game developers, CIG isn't really beholden to us to deliver every single piece of information that they have. We would love them to, sure, that's a fact. And another fact is that CIG definitely has a history of over-promising and under-delivering. They tell us one thing, and then we don't see it till a year later. And that's frustrating for a lot of backers. It's frustrating for me. I guarantee it. I have been incensed over some of the delays and the things that go on, and the lack of communication we receive sometimes. But in the end, it's their game, and they don't really have to do what we want them to.
Well, can I say this real quick?
That being said, they have promised us, they have said, we're going to communicate, we're going to tell you these things. And, a lot of people, myself included, have, felt they've really lacked on that point.
Fair enough. Younique is, I'm going to let Younique toss in because he's got this weird grin on his face, and he's also who does software development. I will not take any away from the fact that there have been promises made. I also know from people that I've spoken to who are in software development that even within software development, within their companies, there are quite often things that they think they will accomplish, and they tell all their people that it'll happen, and then it doesn't. And those disappointments exist within the company just as much as they exist outside of the company as well. But again, I think and I know this, I'm not trying to excuse any of that. I'm sure there are some valid points in the post that are mentioned. I guess all I'm saying is that there is, and I'm basing this on the history of other development of video games. Games like Grand Theft Auto, $300 million in development time. And they constantly are adding to it. And the scale of it is nowhere near what Star Citizen is. And there are plenty of other games that have taken 8, 9, 10 years for development to come out. It's not unusual for that much time. And the reality of it is that Star Citizen has really effectively only been in development for 7 years, roughly, not 10. So I get it. I get the frustration. I'm not taking away anybody's frustration in the game. I just think that it's a matter of perspective. Younique, you can go ahead, and then we're going to jump into ISC.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, everybody just needs to really remember that, yes, it is probably going to take at least 10 years to really get something into beta. It's kind of the first time since the public has seen a big scale thing like this done out in the open. But you also got to remember, I know people feel sometimes that they don't hear everything, but you also need to know that this is a business and that Chris Roberts has to protect some of the information, can't get out there so that his competitors can gobble it up and get it done before Star Citizen or Squadron 42 gets it, right? And with Squadron 42, there needs to be a bunch of secrecy. Why? Because you'll just blow the whole storyline if you just tell it, because it's a single player game. So if you take away the mystery, it's not worth going to play. So it's just really tough. They're in a tough cycle. I don't think when they first started, there was only a handful of those people in 10, and they were saying things into the camera that they didn't really realize how the public would hold them, so firm to it. And I think they've done a pretty good job at trying, but there's a balance. There's just a balance that they've got to hold on to.
Yeah. I think it's a tight wire walk for them. It's there are those times, as both J2 and Heavy Bob said, where they have not delivered. There are times when they have overspoken. But the interesting thing is when they underspeak, there's not enough information. When they overspeak and something goes wrong, then there's a problem that way too. And I'm always kind of watching which way that pendulum swings. I wouldn't want to be in their position. I think that sometimes people think being a backer is being an investor, and there's a big difference between the two. But again, hopefully they'll get it together and the communication will be better for the community. I'm just not sure when the community is ever satisfied, to be honest with you. And that's my thing. I saw your remark in there earlier, Ops Chief, about me not being this upset since 3.0. Heavy Bob knows how to push my buttons, but I appreciate him coming in and sharing the information with us, because and it's good, because it's always good to hear all sides of the coin. We don't want to all be on one side of the deal. So thanks, Heavy Bob, and for telling me about the post, because I didn't even know about it. J2 knew about it, but I wasn't even aware of it. So thanks. Okay, let's jump into ISC. That's next. If I can get the right screen up. Let's see, where am I at here? Go there and go there.
All about tying the mining system to all of the other systems that we really want to sort of focus on in the future. Things like cargo and crafting and anything that would basically allow the player to create things within the universe. So you would typically go out in your mining vehicle, your prospector, your mole, and you would try and find asteroids with preferably valuable materials. So the general idea that we want to put across to players is that you can go out and mine anything you want, but you might also want to be paying a bit more attention to the materials that you're actually bringing back. The refined versions of these materials, which would be more valuable and sell for more than the basic raw materials that you were getting from the asteroid in the first place. When you create your job, you will toggle the refine or discard on each individual material in the cargo hold. And what this will allow you to then do is select the processing type that you would typically want to choose, and you can click the Get Quote button. And what this will do is it polls our backend systems and the refinery system itself to determine the current cost and price and duration of that job in the universe at that exact time. The numbers that you're seeing here as well, the cost of the jobs, the yield that you're getting out, the value of what these materials will end up being ultimately when the patch is released, are subject to change. They're currently going through several balancing passes and are not final, so please no one freak out. Everything you see in ISC is work in progress. Jared made me say this. Refineries also function under a capacity system. There's no limit to the number of jobs they can actually run at any one time, but obviously the higher that you go, the higher that number of the percentage of refinery capacity is, the more the job is going to cost, and it's down then to the player to determine, is this job worth me doing here, or am I basically going to lose money by running a job here when I could take it somewhere else? Refineries additionally also have proficiencies. You could perhaps find a refinery that is extremely good at processing Quantanium, and therefore they will offer you more in the way of yield when you commit the job to them. Typically, this is to encourage players to shop around for the best bargains. Jobs can be anywhere from a few minutes to several hours, depending on the size of the job, the processing type you chose, and the general amount of work and capacity that the refinery is currently at. So jobs can be either created and left until their duration expires, but if you're out and about when a job finishes, you will receive a notification on your visor that states that the job that you completed at the refinery in question has finished. Or you can cancel early and receiving the already processed materials at the cost of discarding the rest. This is to give players the option of claiming a job when maybe all of the Quantanium in the job has been already finished, or allow them to just cancel a job early because they feel like they're going to get enough from it. So ultimately what we wanted to do is we wanted to provide the players with more choice. It's important that we allow players to make bad decisions, but it's also important that we give them all the information that they need to make the good decisions. Whether this is the miner that could decide to just sell his raw materials and cut his losses, or go to the refinery and run it through their system and then come out with ultimately more resources that would be worth a lot more in the way of currency. And we feel these are interesting gameplay scenarios that would benefit the players.
When refining comes online in the upcoming Alpha 3.12, it will be the next step in not only the further development of the mining profession, but also tying it in with the continuing evolution of cargo hauling, the nascent maturity of piracy, and the future addition of crafting. But up next...
Okay, let's stop right there. Admiral Kusanagi's with us. Admiral, thank you for dropping in tonight. How are you?
I am not here tonight.
You're not here tonight?
Me at all.
Oh, okay.
I'm just trying to finish up my Friday the 13th on a good note.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fair.
And my birthday, too.
Happy birthday. Thank you for spending your birthday with us. That's very cool. Much. Thank you. Did you want to make a comment about what we were just talking about, or did you want to talk about the ISC?
I came in for the previous comment, but let's talk about what we just looked at right now.
Okay.
Because I think what we just looked at is probably one of the biggest mechanics to come in the game in quite a long time. Refining, yeah. To be able to take a piece of ore and then convert it into, say, a bar. We'll say latinum just because it's Star Trekky. Mm-hmm. And then be able to then put those bars on a cargo ship and have it worth more, or to not even worry about that, because if you looked at it, it has processing and time processing. So is it really worth your while? I debate, if you saw my post earlier, if it's going to be the Nomad. I'm not sure if it's going to be the Nomad. I think maybe they could just be on stations, but so I kind of think maybe the Nomad's a salvage ship just because the name of the Nomad. But I could be. I'm probably wrong with that. But I think it's a huge mechanic that's coming into the game, and I'm starting to read his post on Spectrum, but so I can't really comment on that right now. But I'll let. And thanks, Kimmy, for my happy birthday there. I'll let you guys comment on the video.
Okay. Heavy Bob, any thoughts on the video? We can't hear you. Say one more time. There he is. Oh, you said
he's like, yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. J2, any thoughts on the video?
It looks neat. Again, like Admiral Kusanagi was saying, this is one of the bigger features to be added to the game in a while. And from what they showed on the video, I'm not sure what to take from it. It kind of just like, we're, sticking it in one thing, waiting an hour, and getting something else back out. It doesn't seem like there's a whole ton of depth to what's going on there, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. I'm excited to see refining. That's for sure. like I said, how in depth the system is remains to be seen.
Yeah. I think the thing that stood out to me was, I know, like right now when you mine, most people try to go for the most valuable ore that's being sold in a raw state, like laranite, for example. And what they've implied is that laranite might be valuable in the sense of it in its raw state, but there may be something like, for example, if you were to mix aluminum and some other thing, gold and something else, when those are combined and refined, that their value increases exponentially. And so that gives you the reason why you would definitely want to use a refinery. I think also they mentioned about the fact that depending on where refineries are, the cost to have things refined will vary. Some places will refine gold at a higher price or cost more to do it there than at other places.
You see, that's sorry, Griff.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
But that's interesting, and that's what I expected from refinery was more of like an alloying sort of process where you would get different materials and sort of mix them together to create something else of higher value.
Absolutely.
And like I said, that's what I expected from refinery coming up to this point, and I didn't really see that in that video, which is what left me, a little skeptical.
Yep, he mentioned it in the sense of being able to combine. He said if you're able to combine things to make something else, he did mention it. And so you're right.
I thought he mentioned that in regard to crafting in the future, not necessarily refining. But I could be mistaken.
Well, I could be too. I'll go back and give me something else to go back and look at now. But I'll go back and look at it.
While we're at it, an earlier point that's just recently come, that just came back up, the Nomad. People have been talking about the Nomad nonstop for like the past 2 or 3 weeks now, and there's. We still have no solid evidence about what this ship could be. The biggest point that people are bringing up is that, that refinery ship was one of the 4 ships that they teased at last year's CitizenCon, and now there's only 2 left. Well, there was only 4 to begin with. So having 2 left out of 4 isn't that big a deal to me. They're halfway through the list. And going through that list, there's been other things released in between. So it's not like they're going down the list sequentially. So true. That to me is not the fact that there was a refinery ship on that list at last year's CitizenCon is not evidence that the Nomad will be the refinery. There is other evidence that sort of points that way, but that's not it. And the other thing that we know about the Nomad is that it's being released in a starter pack, and it's also being released in a starter package with Squadron 42. None of the other Profession starter ships have been released in starter packs. They've been released in game packages, but not starter packs, and none of them have been released with Squadron 42. So if this is a refinery, then that's a departure from the norm for CIG.
That's a very, very good point. And I remember Sean Tracy actually saying last year, toward the end of last year, it was the beginning of this year, I can't remember, where he said we have a lot of ships that are done. We haven't released them yet. So you're right. It doesn't mean that it's limited to those 2 ships that we saw at CitizenCon last year. That's a great observation. Younique, anything you got in relation to the refinery piece?
Well, if it is a refinery ship, I would just refer back to like. What's that thing called? The reclaimer. We have a reclaimer. You can't reclaim anything. I don't see any mechanics to actually make refining happen. Right? You got the ship, but how do you transfer the ore to the ship? How do you get the refined goods back off into its ship where it's transportable to some other place? How does all that happen? So the game mechanics aren't there. You will get a ship, no matter what it's good for, but it won't do what it's slotted to do, except for
we got the Starfarer as well.
Vulture too.
The
Vulture is the Vulture.
Well, the Vulture and the Reclaimer are both technically salvage ships.
Right.
I don't think the Vulture is actually supposed to refine anything.
Right.
It's just supposed to collect the salvage. The Reclaimer, however, is supposed to be able to take that refined material and or that salvage material and refine it in some way, shape, or form. Probably not in the same way that these the refineries and whatever refinery ship we get would refine, but it's supposed to have a similar type of mechanic going on there.
So wait a minute,
I think
now
the Starfarer also is supposed to be able to harvest gas and then refine it into fuel.
Well, that's my question now, because everyone's assuming that this is a refining ship for ore. maybe it's not. Maybe it's like for gas planets or something like.
Well, my problem with the ship is the price tag. I again, that ship is less than the Prospector. It's $100. It's a starter. And I said earlier, I can't see somebody using a starter just because they want to go into refining. That would be really strange. We just got a raid from someone, but I don't know who it was. Let's see. Uber Nerd. Oh my God, Uber Nerd. Thank you. Thank you, Uber Nerd. With 66, all the nerds are coming over. You guys welcome over to Friday Night Live with the Soul Citizens and with Admiral Kusanagi and with Heavy Bob and with J2 Smiling Viking. No, those are all very, very good points, and I didn't think about that. J2, your points that you mentioned about how that ship could definitely be outside of the norm if it were going to be a refining ship. So I guess only time will tell what it is. What I do want to say about the ISC episode was that they showed that they are very far with refining because we saw it on a console. They gave us details about it. One of the things that I think may drive some people crazy, except for people who are really into mining, they mentioned about the fact that you also go into a queue when you want to have resources refined. So that means that if the three of you guys get there before me, I'm fourth in line. And they said that there are time factors involved that could go from minutes to hours. Do you guys think that that will be a turnoff for some people, or do you think some people will get off on that whole thing?
I think that the price will be part of the dictation of how much time it will take. Right, so you'll pay for your queue speed. So if you need it really fast, it'll cost you more money. But if you really need it fast, it'll be worth that. Okay. So there'll be some equilibrium about that.
Okay.
If they do it that way.
All right. Any of the guests? Anybody got any thoughts on that? The refining and times, the queue.
I think that's going to be a neat little factor and kind of add to the competition in that sort of gameplay. And they also said that different refineries at different stations are going to have different specializations. So one maybe do, if you got a load of aluminum, you want to bring it to this one station. They got the best, they got the most efficient rate of refinement, but there's a queue. So maybe you skip to the other side of the system and go to this other station where they're not as efficient, but they have a much shorter queue. I think that's a neat bit of gameplay, and that's one thing. Like I've always CIG is really good at delivering systems with a lot of depth to them. Even every other space game I've ever played has some form of mining in it. None of them are like what CIG has done. So I think we can expect the same level of depth to the gameplay there, when it comes to refining, which would be really nice. Depth is a good thing, in my opinion.
I think this goes along with owning your own refinery ship, whether it be if it is a Nomad or something like that. You want to wait in line, you don't have a refining capability, that's fine. You can still do what you need to do. You're going to have to wait your turn. Or if you have a Nomad or any other ship that's going to do that type of work, or if it is a refinery ship, then hey, you get it right there and you're good to go. Or you could sell your services to other people who don't want to wait at a station. So you could have a whole org, and just all it is a refinery org. So they're opening possibilities.
Absolutely.
Sorry about that. He said if you own an Orion, Colossal was saying that if you own an Orion, you could definitely lend out your services to people who don't want to wait at one of those stations. They'll come to you and get the refining done on your ship. So it'll be interesting to see how far a ship can refine versus an actual refinery. I mean, the Orion is the granddaddy, but whether or not it have the full capabilities that a well-known or a very large refinery would have, we'll have to see how that mechanic goes in the game. So, yeah.
Very true.
Okay, cool. All right, let's jump into part 2 of this particular episode here. Hang in there, guys.
Let's look now at how weapon zeroing is being used to provide better agency to snipers across the galaxy.
Say I'm on a hilltop somewhere and I'm looking down my scope. If I'm shooting at someone 100 meters away, it generally wouldn't be too much of an issue. But if you start to get to 500 meters, a kilometer, or even further, then you really need to start countering that, and you will need some assistance the further and further away you get, and that's where weapon zeroing comes in. One of the best and most unique things about Star Citizen is the biggest challenge to any FPS game, and that is the amount of varied environments that we have. So if you think about it, if you go to a different planet or a different moon, the pull of gravity is always going to be different, the environment's going to be completely different, the weather even might be completely different. Trying to counter those effects and knowing how to counter all of those effects no matter where you are is obviously very difficult, and especially with the amount of varied weapons that we have, so different types of projectile, laser, ballistic, they all have different effects in different conditions. So in patch 3.12 we'll be introducing weapon zeroing. Our first offering includes 4 times and upward scope, so you'll be able to use those in your LMGs, your rifles, and your sniper rifles. There are 3 different types of scopes with zeroing on. So we have the most basic version of the scope, which is just the zeroing scope, is generally, I think, will be picked up by more experienced players who kind of know combat ranges that they're going to be in. They can set their scope to that and not have to worry about it anymore. So say if you're in the Crossroads of Crime map in Theatres of War, you know your engagement distance is roughly 100 meters generally. You can set your scope to that and not have to worry about it again, and it's no faff. The next version up is essentially that with a bit of assistance with the rangefinder. So this will be better for kind of, I guess, environments that you're less familiar with, but you still want that personal control over where you're setting your zeroing distance to. So if you're sitting out on a hill on a planet somewhere, you know that people are going to be getting out of their ships at this station and you want to take them out, then you can set your zeroing distance to that distance with the assistance of the rangefinder, and you don't have to worry about it again, you don't have to change it. The auto zeroing is probably the most user-friendly version, especially beginner-friendly version, is because you don't really have to worry about obviously cycling through the ranges yourself, and you can just look at your target. The only downside to that is if you are looking at a target and you accidentally look past it when you hit the auto zero button, you might zero to a distance a bit further away or a distance that's a little bit, closer. So it can be a little bit more error prone than the other two. So there are certainly upsides and downsides to all of the options, which is why we've provided them all. So that's weapon zeroing. It's not just another really cool feature we're adding to the game. It's all about giving players choice for equipping themselves out to overcome the obstacles and problems that they encounter out in the universe on all of these crazy different environments that we've got out there. So I'm sure that tons of players will be using these soon and finding them really, really fun. So yeah, thank you very much, and enjoy playing with the new scopes.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that refining means the job is no longer done once you've just extracted all the minerals. That it aims to provide opportunities for occupations adjacent to mining. And that weapon zeroing won't make bad snipers good, but it should make good snipers better. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you next week.
Okay. For those of you who are into the whole stealth sniping thing, Heavy Bob, are you into combat stuff like that with the stealth reconnaissance, or no?
Look,
Intergalactic.
they're adding weapon zeroing to the game. There isn't a single mission that involves killing players on a planet or killing NPCs on a planet. So I think this is just like they added a cool feature, but when does it actually be used?
Okay, good point. J2,
like, you can't. Like,
I'm sorry.
Like you can't like just go kill like people, snipe them, and then go steal their cargo and go sell. So like it kind of defeats the purpose of even adding it if you can't really do anything else after they're dead. Sorry.
You can't do anything else after they're dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and we don't have looting, basically. Yet, hopefully that they keep telling us that'll be a thing. Hopefully it will be a thing in the not too distant future, and then we'll have a use for it. More of a use for it. In the meantime, get the system in, get it working right, so that when we can shoot some guy from 1,000 yards out and then run out there and loot his corpse, that way it's all well polished and working. I think this is a pretty neat feature, and it ties in with something that came with 3.11 that wasn't in the patch notes and not everyone has caught yet, is that engagement distances in the game have increased dramatically in 3.11. We went from engagement distances of 100, maybe 200 yards if we were lucky, up to now being able to engage people at 1,300, 1,500 yards. I've seen some incredible sniper shot videos on YouTube and Reddit, just over the past couple of weeks, and it's been impressive. And this is another one of those features that where CIG just adding depth to the systems that no other game developer does, which I think we owe them a little pat on the back for that. One question, a couple of questions I do have about this system is that they're talking about zeroing and bullet drop, and he mentioned weather effects, but he didn't mention how much we would have the ability to adjust for, say, windage
compensation.
Where our bullets are going to definitely drop over a distance, but will the wind affect how far we have to compensate left or right for that? And if that's in the system, then hey, doubly cool. I'm a little sketchy about the whole auto part about it. That takes sort of a little bit of the skill out of it, but at the same time, you got to let the new players and the noobs at least be able to feel like they're making a difference.
That's a good point. I do have a question for both you and Heavy Bob, though, when you say that because the looting aspects are not in the game yet, and I get it in relation to missions and things of that nature, but I mean, I still see the game, even in the state that it's in right now, as a sandbox, which means that we create the scenarios. Is that part of the problem, that players are not creating scenarios so that when mechanics like this come in, that they actually have meaning?
I don't think that's the problem. I think that there's a lack of mechanics which create a void. Like, when was we're having an update for mining with the refining? Like, when was the last update for piracy?
Well, they're not working on piracy. And see, this is the interesting argument, because people who have a heart for a certain career or certain type of thing, obviously that's what they're looking for. For like people who are into mining feel that there has been progress, where maybe somebody who's into medicine feels that there's been no progress in the thing that they want to do in the game.
Okay, that's certainly true.
But I get your point, and I do understand what you're mentioning about the fact that what is the purpose between, even if I do snipe somebody, what is the benefit that comes from that? If that's all I'm doing is just maybe popping somebody in the head, and the buck stops there.
Like, I don't mind popping people in the head. It's just like it'd be a little bit nice. It'd be nice if there was a little bit more to the loop than just popping people in the head.
True, but again, that's why I say but that's why I'm mentioning about a sandbox. I mean, regardless to what CIG puts in, there's a playground out there, right? And it's
up to CIG to make mechanics that are beneficial to the majority of players. Will zeroing help that? I don't think so.
I'm not saying
only in conjunction with something else.
Okay, I'm not saying that zeroing is helping that. I'm saying, let's say if it's a sandbox and there are tools there, isn't there some aspect on our part when we're playing in a sandbox to create scenarios so that we can use what is there?
You're getting the sprinkles, and like you're not getting the ice cream or the cherry.
Okay,
exactly. I mean, the tools are there, and I think players up to this point have done. I mean, if you look at some of the things some streamers have done, organizing large events and things like that, it's been impressive. The amount of what do they call it? Emergent gameplay,
right? That
players have come up with, but the tools aren't there yet for us to really fill out those loops. I mean, like Kusanagi is saying, I can go out and now I can shoot a guy from 1,000 yards out. I can sit there. I can have one of my buddies drop me off outside Tram and Myers, and I can wait for some trader to be walking out the door and pop him in the head, and then go fly off in his ship. But then what can I do? I can't sell his cargo. I can't transfer his cargo to another ship. So I mean, I may have fun for a day or two, ruining some trader's day.
But it's limited.
But yeah, it's limited. And until we get those the rest of those tools and capabilities to have a purpose for I mean. Granted, I go out and shoot some guy in the head. Yeah, that's fun. But why am I doing it? Other than to ruin someone else's day.
I definitely agree with Viking. It's misguided.
I gotcha.
I think it's a neat feature, but the novelty of it will wear off quickly.
Okay.
Without some more behind it.
Gotcha. Admiral, were you going to say something?
So let me jump in here, I guess. So like J2 was saying was completely correct. I mean, a few months back, I actually enjoyed the sniper rifles, and you couldn't hit 200 meters away, and now they're like I'll use Scum, for instance, because you can hit people out at 1,000 meters, and there is windage and wind involved. So I'm hoping that Star Citizen, gets to that level, but it's vastly improved to go along Heavy Bob's point, you can't do anything. You can't open up, say, a freelancer and say, hey, the guy's got tons of cargo back there. I just want to like take it now that he's dead. So perhaps you'll have like a variant of the rock that can actually, unload someone's cargo and put it in theirs. So that's a possibility, and it would be kind of easy for them to do because it's so transportable. So I think this year is very difficult, and it's certainly not doesn't look like it's getting better because of the situation the country and the world's in. So we have to kind of take that into effect, and no one really wants to do that, and I know it's difficult for everybody. And things are getting delayed, and that's we've been promised a lot, but I think if like the way that the game is going, then you go out there. It's buggy as heck right now. I'm not in the PTU. I didn't check out the MSR. I've watched enough videos. I'm like, I'm good. And it's the most beautiful alpha out there. It blows away any finished game. And you have to imagine, like, okay, how much time do I have to put into this? I think it's moving forward. It's just, it's a crawl because we're not seeing all these puzzle pieces being put together, even though they're putting those puzzle pieces together behind the scenes. Like, no one knew all this stuff for the refinery thing was being worked on probably 6 months ago or further on. So this is just like, hey, it's done. It's coming out next patch. So that's my take.
Okay.
There's also in 3.12, according to the roadmap, hasn't been removed just yet, the the multi-tool attachment, the tractor beam attachment. So it's still a question of how that's going to work, and we may start getting the ability to move cargo, which would then give us a reason to do some of these things. I believe they still need iCache and more item persistence before we can really do that. But again, that cargo tool attachment, the tractor beam attachment, is one more piece in that puzzle, just like Admiral was saying. And again, it's getting there. It's just coming in drips and drabs. And for those of us, especially those of us that have been back in this game for a long time, we're passionate about it. We want to play. So these drips and drabs and this slow crawl to the finish line is terribly frustrating.
Yeah.
And that tool attachment you're talking about is huge. Think about like how it's going to work with the Cutlass Black, how it's going to work for those. Does an Argo make a ship that specifically does that? Those like tow trucks,
the SRV,
and that works with cargo, like the giant cargo containers. That's a huge mechanic that there's like, hey, we're going to do this now. So
and very few of the backers, people in the community aren't really talking about that.
They don't pick up on that.
Exactly. It's these little pieces, and everybody's saying, oh, well, give me this and give me that. Well, they're getting there. They're just getting there slowly, and it drives me nuts.
It's frustrating,
but
it's frustrating.
It is. It absolutely is.
Let me ask a question of you guys then, and this is for Heavy Bob and J2 and Admiral Kusanagi. And I don't want to make this sound like I'm being defensive. I'm just trying to state a truth, and then just step back and tell me if what I'm saying makes sense. Star Citizen is in testing. People will say it's a game, and at the same time, the same community says there's no game there. You know what I'm saying? That people will say, "Oh yeah, there's a game," and then when we say that there aren't certain things or game loops, then the true definition of a game does not exist. So are our expectations for a game that is in development and that we're supposed to be testing? Because I often wonder how many people who bark about stuff actually test, or whether they just come play the game. Are those expectations, are they really expectations that really have strong worth?
I don't see Star Citizen as a game. It's in development, and we get to test its development and get to see how absolutely amazing it really could be. And the hope is there that it is exactly what Chris Roberts wants it to be, and it's going that way. But you really can't look at it as a game, because then you get a little bit like, well, this isn't like every other game, and I have to worry about bugs and all this other stuff. It's just I just think it kind of puts you in a mindset that it's like that you really it makes you like dislike it a little bit more than you should, because if you realize you're testing the development stages.
So is that the struggle, because we are in a different space than we normally would be? I mean, most gamers, we get into a beta, you know what I mean, or an early access stage, and that's it. Kimmy, could you mute your thing you're echoing through? Thank you. Is that part of the struggle that we have as backers, that because this is a different space, it's a struggle in that balance? Mad Wolf, thank you for the 100 bits, and and the VTOL for the freelancer. You know who's gonna love that. Thank you so much. Is that part of our problem, because we are in this unique space?
I think it definitely is part of the problem. The thing about Star Citizen is that it's a weird sort of dichotomy, because it's a game in development, but there's also a live environment. When we're in the PTU, we're playing it as a game, and even Chris Roberts himself said in I believe it was the last Squadron 42 video, the briefing room or whatever it was, that no, this isn't even an alpha yet. This is still like pre-alpha stages of what a game should be. Yet we still have that live environment. So people log in and they play and they expect to be able to do certain things, and when they can't, they get frustrated and lose the perspective. They're trying to do two things at the same time. They're trying to develop a game and give us an environment we can play in, and it doesn't always work out the way people expect it to. And I think people simply struggle with the duality of that situation.
Ops Chief, thank you for that subscription, and it went to Heavy Bob. Ops Chief hooked you up. All right,
really appreciate it. I'm just writing a very long comment.
All right, Kimmy just came in. Hey, Kimmy, how are you?
Hey guys, what's going on tonight? Friday Night Live.
Was there some thought you had, Kimmy?
I came in on the debate, and just looking at this total conversation is interesting. But it's polarizing, and then there's...
Is Kimmy talking? I don't hear.
Oh, you don't hear me?
Yeah, he's speaking.
Fine.
Okay. It's polarizing, but there's a lot of perspectives, and I've learned something from this. And to give you perspective on how this, I kind of see both sides. I can give you an example, a recent one, right? Okay, the Mercury Star Runner just came out, right? And so I'm going into the PTU, and I'm like, yo, man, yeah, okay, I'm gonna get in it. I bought this ship, I backed this ship, I'm ready to get in. I scroll down and I don't see it. I was like, hey, what's going on? Where's my ship? Is it a bug? I'm in PTU, and it was like, oh no, it's for the people who did EVO, Evocati, or the content creators. And then I'm standing there like, what the hell, right? And so what I'm trying to say is, the thing that, you have one side of it where, it's to understand that this is development, this is an alpha, and it takes SIG X amount of years to do this. We get that. And then there's the other side of it where, I bought an Endeavor and I backed this project and I spent good money on this ship, and where is it? And then it's the other argument of, well, let them develop things and just wait. And then this, I kind of like everything what they're doing about the project, but then you have the other perspective of, I want this particular thing, but I'm seeing everyone else happy about the things that they're seeing in it. I want to be happy too, but I've also invested. And then you have the argument of, well, this is similar to CD Projekt Red in the time frame, but not just one game, but they're doing 2 games. And then you can say, then the other person will say, well, I get that, but if I would have known this, if it would have taken this long, because of the way that Chris he advertised it, if I would have known ahead of time, if I had to wait like this, would that same person would put money down on the Endeavor like that? Probably no. But it's to say, I think yeah, there's a certain amount of patience that everyone have, but when they feel as though they're left out of the project, or if they say, well, I don't want to, I don't, you have the argument of, I don't want to do dog fighting, I'm terrible at it, I want to do trading, or I want to be a medic, but it's not there for me yet. And so you see everyone else celebrating it, that some of the things that's in the game for them, or some of the things that, well, all the things they're happy about, they're just happy about everything, and it's like, I want to be happy too, but then you're still waiting there for it. But I think the thing is, this roadmap has a lot to do with being able to see your item or your feature that's coming down the line, even though it's not ready yet, even though it's going to take time. I think that's where some things fell through the cracks for SIG, as well as like when they started trying to get things going in the beginning. And I think that's where people felt let down, and they don't want that to happen again. And so they're kind of leery of that. But at the same time, they want to celebrate it just like me, just like everybody else who's, well, they have this, they're doing this, they're very happy with that. And you have that one person that, all I want is this medic, that's it. But I think with that, it's just to say, let each individual speak out what they need to speak out, and just accept it for what it is, because that's what Chris and crew took on from the beginning. Let them handle that responsibility. That's what they promised. That's what they're there for. Until they get what they want to play in the game, they have every right to keep voicing that opinion. And we have to look at that perspective and respect it and say, hey, look, even if they say, well, we're not going to give you another dime until we see the promises that you told us, because from my perspective, I haven't seen it yet. But then you're going to have the other perspectives of, well, I see everything, I see the potential, I see the promise, and I'm going to keep giving. So you're going to have those varied perspectives, and we just have to look at each other and say, that's this person's perspective. I see what they're going through. I understand it. I felt some of that. Or this guy's happy. He can help lift me up about the game, or give me perception, more deeper insight on the game. But at the end of the day, we have to look at each other's perspective on the game, and we have to look back at Chris and hold him responsible.
Well, I appreciate that, Kimmy. I'm not going to say my 2 cents about all this, because it'll probably piss off half the people in the room. So I'll leave it on your happier note. But I am going to talk to Younique, and the reason why I'm going to bring up Younique at this point is that
if you don't like it, shut up.
I'm going to bring in Younique.
I'm hearing a gnat. There's a gnat in my ear.
Yeah, Younique has been in the game longer than I think all of us that are in the room right now. And you guys have jokingly heard me say this before, the only people who have something to gripe about with this game are the people who did the original backing, because they were sold one thing, and it has morphed since their original change. So, but I say that jokingly, but I do want to hear Younique's perspective, because he has been in here since the original backing in 2012. So, Younique, have you got any thoughts?
So the key word is perspective on this. Okay, so there was a point, if you've been around long enough, that they gave you some graphics. It was called a hangar. And then they actually gave you a ship to put in your hangar. Here is your spaceship. You funded a space game. You got a spaceship, but you couldn't fly it.
Yeah.
Okay. So your perspective actually changes over time. You're complaining about things now, as you should. We all want these things, and by voicing them, you make sure that they hear you, that you want these things, you still want them, but realize that there's some absurdity at some point that I have a spaceship, I bought a space game, but I can't fly in space. So it's coming. It's all should be coming, and it is frustrating to wait. I, as a developer, would have more focused on finishing a single game loop, front to end. Right, like fly your ships, mine, bring that stuff back, and be able to sell it. Finish the refining, blah blah blah, and then move on to the next game loop. I mean, there is core technology you got to put in, like they did the jumps in space, and you got to have ships in order to be able to do that. But they have all of that now. They have the opportunity to finish a game loop or 2 or 3. And I put out there just in the chat, well, why do I have these scopes? The improved scopes. Is it to make the pirates happier? I know they don't like griefing, but then why did you give the griefers something so that they can be happy? Right. So, I mean, obviously it's for something, right? For the bounty hunting and things like that nature, but what can you do with it right now? So you already immediately going to see, I've got 2 sides of the coin that I'm speaking about now. Some people are going to like shooting people, and some people are going to really hate getting shot from, I can't tell who shot me.
That's a good point.
So the perspective is just dynamic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I appreciate all the points that were made today. I know Heavy Bob is filling the chat up with his feelings. No, there was one thing that he put in here that I thought was,
you can say it. He's a troll.
Was interesting. And this is the one he said. He says, when people unite behind a cause, we can get them to change. I cite the example of the paid live stream when CIG tried to force people to pay to watch CitizenCon. The community united and threatened CIG with a boycott. And that was a definitely bad decision making on their part, and they did respond to the community. But you could say the same thing about when they barked about struts and people and they changed struts. They have listened to the community. But I think there's a slight difference here, and the slight difference here for me would be, what is the impact of the people who fall into the other side, the people who feel that the progress is happening? And if the community becomes divided to that degree, and we force CIG's hand, I don't think it's because they have stuff sitting around on their desks and they're not putting it out. If we force them to put out something that's not ready, hence No Man's Sky in other games, we know what the response was to that too. And we've been burned by other games. We've been burned by, Fallout 76. We've been burned by Anthem. All these other games that had all this promise and people looked forward to coming out. And then when they didn't come out, they lasted no more than a month and the communities left them. So I think that we have to be very careful about what we're going to push for. I think we should push for clarity, for communication, better transparency. I think all those points are valid. But if you want to shut down the funding to this game, be prepared for the repercussions of that, because that's a heavy hand to push, and everybody in the community doesn't feel that way. So, yep, Heavy Bob, scream like you mean it. Scream like that when the game doesn't work and it's broken. That's the other side of the coin. I've been around to see this community cheers CIG 1 month, and a month later, I've seen them rip them apart. And that's been happening for the longest time. So,
Griff.
Yes.
All the games you mentioned there, like Anthem and all the other ones. Like, I've had a few org mates who are like, "Oh, you get into this, and you have to get into new Fallout," and I'm like, I don't think so. It looks like crap, and they all ended up just going off a cliff. And it's just kind of wasted time and funds, because you really have to really figure out what they're trying to put out there, and if they're trying to do things get for like a quick buck. And I always use KOTOR 2 when Obsidian was trying to rush it out before Christmas, and then they didn't finish the ending of the game. It was just like, what happened? It's sorry to go back to a game that came out 10 years ago, but that's always in the front of my mind is getting something that's just pushed out the door to make a few select people happy and a bunch of execs who want to make millions of dollars. I invest my time into this game, and I'll look forward to the sale that's coming out. I might not buy anything, but I'll certainly see what's there, and then go from there, and just the next day's the next day, and give them a shot. I mean, as long as I don't kill over from, getting hit by an errant moose or something like that, I'll be here.
Well, I want to go.
If you live in Canada, it could happen.
It's true.
And I think that's really isn't another valid point. So many games that I mean, I can't remember the last game that I bought that I actually enjoyed, even right up to last month. Star Wars Squadrons, what a freaking joke that thing was. Just totally disappointed with that. And that's one of the reasons that I backed this game and I backed Chris Roberts, is because he's doing it on his own. This is his dream game, and he's not willing to cut any corners. And, you know, as frustrated as I get sometimes with the pace of which things are released, once they are released, you know, bugs aside, they're good systems. You know, I mean, I can't say enough about, you know, well, the only real system that we have so far is mining. It's just so much more in depth than anything else out there. And if they continue with that type of development, then by the time they reach the end, you know, I'm sure beyond the shadow of a doubt that this will be a game that I'm more than satisfied with. You know, it's just the pace at which things are moving. And I think Chris Roberts is just,
I think we have an edge.
Yeah. You know,
here's the key edge. If you line up the other corporate execs that run these game companies and things like that, how many of them are actually players of the genre?
Yeah.
And then on top of it, how many of them are also software engineers? Chris is both of those things. Right. He plays his own games. And now,
does he?
It's not. Yes, he does.
Yeah,
he is a gamer. He's a big time gamer.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he's a software engineer. So he understands what it takes to develop it. He's involved in the development and aspects of it. Now, I'm not saying this is twofold edge over an exec that doesn't do those things, but more of his heart's in it than a regular exec that's just in it for the money.
Let me wrap this up because we got a couple more things to do. I do genuinely want to say, Heavy Bob, thank you. J2, thank you. Admiral Kusanagi, thank you. Because we need to hear all sides of this, because they're very valid points, because people, regardless to where you stand in this, people are passionate about wanting to see the game done and done well. This is the one word I will say in support of whichever way you want to look at it. And I still tell people this.
Don't be a Buzz Killington.
No, yeah. This is what I will say. That's Gigi. Y'all jumping in and out. This is what I will say. If you're supporting the game, support the game because you're supporting the development. Don't do it to buy ships. You know, we say that and we hear it all the time, but I think it's very easy to get caught up in the marketing, the commercials, the hype of everything. If you're spending money in this game, do it because you're supporting and backing what they're trying to do. So for those people who may not feel that the game is moving well, that's a good space to be in. If they feel like, hey, I'm not buying any more ships until I see more, do it. There you go. There's a reason not to buy ships, because you want to see the development happen. But then again, if you're one of those people that says, hey, I like this thing, or I don't have the time to play, but I'm willing to support, then do it for that reason too. We want you to be wise about this. And as you guys know, it's going to be free flight all week next week. So you can fly whatever you want to for free and not spend any money. And most of you guys know people who own other ships, so you can always fly their ships. But, you know, be respectful to everybody, you know, in this space. We know it's a very difficult piece, what's going on with development of this game, and very unique and very different. Let me change the channels real quick. Normally we talk about SCL, Star Citizen Live today, and today they did something really interesting on Star Citizen Live. If you guys saw on Halloween, Jared did this whole piece with Count, what's his name? Count Disco again.
Count Disco.
And he did this thing where it was kind of like the equivalent of what Tom Hanks did with the soccer ball, and he created a Pico out of it. And what they decided to do, which was strange, was to make one in game. And so the developer today sat there and recreated the thing that Disco did. And they're saying that this is actually going to be in the game. It won't be something you have to pay for. They said it won't be a subscriber flare, but it is going to end up being in the game.
Definitely not Fast Card. That's horrifying.
So
No.
That's all the show was today, guys. It was just sitting there watching them make this thing. So we're not going to do an SCL today, okay, just so you'll know. But we just want you to know what the STL was about, okay? But what we will do, and our guests are here with us, we want them to hang with us because, as always, you guys know when we wrap up the show, we watch a Machinima. And I try to find Machinimas that either I haven't seen or I've rarely seen. And I stumbled across a different one today. And we're going to take a look at it. And it's called SAR. And I think we were going to talk about this a little bit because this Sunday show is on support ships, and this particular Machinima deals with support. So let's take a quick look at that. Alrighty. That's a different type of machinima. And it kind of deals with what we're going to be talking about this Sunday. We're going to be talking about support. Admiral Kusanagi, just give you a review on that short machinima. What'd you think of it?
It was pretty cool. I was a little confused with them throwing the ship back in the sun, because I think it should be called like Search for Coins or something like that. They don't know how to make money. But yeah, I mean, it's a great little showcase of what the game could go into. What we were talking about with the J2 was the whole being able to use a fractor beam that was showcased there. So yeah, pretty cool.
Okay, cool. Heavy Bob? Did we lose him?
He's grabbing some sushi, I think.
Oh, is he? Okay, J2, what about you?
That was not in-game footage.
No.
I think they cheated.
No, it wasn't in-game footage.
I'm just kidding. That was a really good video. Impressive work.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely was some cool visuals going on there.
Yeah. Younique, how about you? What'd you think of it?
Oh, like I said, it was a good short.
Mm-hmm.
Very well put together. Falling into the sun's a little bit cliche about adding drama to things and then throwing away the ship. And then the last thing that is questionable is you don't know what ship they're on to come rescue that ship.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, what is that ship?
Yeah, it looked like what they tried to do is replicate the SRV that was towing it, because it pulled it into the hangar. Is it that
big?
The SRV, yeah, it's pretty large.
Okay.
Not the big ship. I'm talking the one that was behind it when it was pulling it into the hangar. There was a second ship.
Well,
there.
yeah. No,
Mm-hmm.
but I meant what ship are they going into inside the hangar?
Oh, yeah, the hangar.
What is that ship?
Yeah, I don't know what the heck that was either. We're running it again, so maybe we can take another look at it.
I mean, you're out by a sun. You're in deep space, obviously, because that's where all the suns hang out. Last time I checked.
Yeah.
So if you're just hanging out by one of the hottest things in the universe, and you tractor beam away from it, what is the ship that you're putting this thing into? Because now it's holding that wreck and all of the people and the ship that did the towing.
Yeah.
So,
what I did like about the video was, and it's hard to tell what the heck that is. He gets in some type of battle and he gets shot and he drifts off, I guess, and heads toward that sun.
Yeah, he's on a drift.
Yeah. The thing I did like about it was that it showed the aspect of that mechanic that we're looking forward to, where there is this retrieval of a ship and the medical piece that popped up. I did like the fact that they showed that medical table that they put the person in, and we saw that with the Apollo, that same type of thing will be in game. So I did like the fact that when this guy's walking with that anti-grav and he's bringing the person in, that they're looking down that road. We know that CIG has showed us that they are looking at something like that for the game. So for you medical people and those people who are into that support thing, we're going to be talking about support this Sunday, which is why I kind of thought this was kind of a neat video to show. But yeah, the sun piece was a little bit of a trope, but hey.
It almost looked like two different hangars when it was coming in and when it was going out. And that the hangar was coming in, strangely reminiscent of the Enterprise D.
And this is, I mean, they're saying search and rescue, so this might not even be the medical part. This is before the medical part, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I don't know. Well, this was in 2017 when they cut this video. Anyway, I put the link in the chat there if you guys are interested in checking it out. But I thought it was a different machinima. It was one of the ones I hadn't seen before. It was a little bit different. So
yeah, it's pretty good, especially from back then.
Yeah, considering.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that old. Nice.
Yeah, considering. Oh, Kimmy, I'm sorry you were here. I for some reason I didn't see you in here a second ago. I must have just overlooked your name. I'm sorry. What did you think of the machinima?
Oh, it's just the premise of the possibilities that we can play out in game, and those things can occur once we get all these things in, and those interactions can actually take place.
Very cool. Very cool.
I think everyone on the stream should be science teachers at some like high school or something. Would all be like, think about it, possibilities.
All the Carl Sagans, the junior Carl Sagans in the room.
Well, with the new scopes.
Sounds like fun.
With the new scopes, you could have shot the pilot through the glass from the hangar, and it just moved on.
Okay. Well, listen, we're going to wrap up the show for tonight. We had a very stimulating conversation. Thanks to Heavy Bob, who always comes in and stimulates my mind when he drops in. I appreciate him coming by. Admiral Kusanagi, as always. J2, it was good to see you again as well. I hope that the computer issues get resolved quickly because we've missed seeing you around.
They're working on it. Hopefully after the holidays, I'll be back up and running.
Okay,
Nice.
that sounds like a plan. Catch some good sales right now. Actually, this is a good time to do anything for computers, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Graphics cards, all that stuff,
AMD.
gang. Take advantage of Black Fridays all the way through
December
January,
8th.
gang. This is the time to do it if you're thinking about those upgrades. It's a great time to do it. Don't forget, next week is IAE 2950. You guys have fun with it. Fly as many
days.
ships for free as you want to. We'll see if CIG has anything special for us beyond ships. And I want to again thank our guests, Admiral Kusanagi, Heavy Bob, J2, Kimmy, thank you for dropping in. Younique, thank you for hanging in here. This brother's up late. He's on a different time zone, but he got energized and hung out with us tonight. And we are going to set up a raid for Mr. Paul Shelley, the Astropub. I want to encourage you guys to drop in on Paul. He's doing a charity fundraiser, so you guys please, for Stack Up, and you guys know Paul, he's been around for a good while. Drop in and say hi to him. If you can support him, please do that. Send him love from the Soul Citizens tonight, and we appreciate you guys hanging out with us on a Friday night. Hopefully you guys can follow us on Twitch, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Instagram. And don't forget about our show Sunday. We're going to be talking about support ships, and that's going to be stuff like the the Starfarer, like the Apollo, the Crucible. We're going to be talking about those ships and their worth in the game for Star Citizen. So, you guys, thank you again. You guys have a good night. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Be safe out there with all this crazy Corona stuff going on. And as always, peace, love, and soul. We'll see you guys next time.